I should have known better than to attend Victoria's wedding. My older sister had made it clear over the past 5 years that my presence was more of an obligation than a celebration. But Mom had insisted, using that particular tone that meant refusal would result in 3 months of passive-aggressive phone calls. The Riverside Grand Hotel was Victoria's choice, a sprawling venue with crystal chandeliers and marble floors that screamed expensive taste. She'd married Marcus Caldwell, a senior partner at his father's investment firm, the kind of man who wore his privilege like a second skin. I arrived wearing a simple navy dress I'd grabbed between board meetings. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would draw attention. "You actually came," Victoria said when I found her in the bridal suite, her tone hovering between surprise and disappointment. Her wedding dress probably cost more than most people's cars. All silk and intricate beading that caught the light. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. She studied me with that critical gaze I'd grown accustomed to. "That's what you're wearing? It's a nice dress." "It's plain." She adjusted her veil in the mirror. "I suppose it matches your lifestyle. How's the little internet thing going?" "It's going well." The sound conveyed everything: doubt, dismissal, disinterest. "Mom mentioned you're still doing that startup thing." 5 years now. 6 actually. 6 years. She shook her head. "Don't you think it's time to get a real job? Marcus knows people. He could probably get you an entry-level position somewhere respectable." I kept my expression neutral. "I appreciate the thought, but I'm happy where I am." "Happy?" She laughed. "Sophie, you're 28 years old. You should have a career by now, not a hobby that loses money." My company, Nextstream Technologies, had just closed our Series D funding at a $4.2 billion valuation 3 months ago. Last week we'd finalized our IPO paperwork. The public announcement was scheduled for today, specifically 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The timing was unfortunate, but I'd tried to move it. The SEC doesn't reschedule for wedding conflicts. "I'm doing fine, Victoria." "That's what you always say." She turned back to her reflection. "Just try not to embarrass me today, okay? Marcus's family is very well connected. His father knows senators. Real successful people." The ceremony itself was beautiful. Victoria had always had excellent taste in aesthetics, if not in empathy. I sat in the 3rd row, sandwiched between distant cousins who didn't bother making conversation. Mom found me during cocktail hour. She looked elegant in a champagne-colored gown, her hair styled in perfect waves. "Sophie, darling, you could have tried harder with your appearance." "Hello, Mom. I'm serious. This is an important event. The Caldwells are very prominent." She glanced around, lowering her voice. "Marcus's mother asked what you do for work." I didn't know what to tell her. "You could have told her the truth. That you work at some internet startup?" Mom's eyebrows rose. "She'd think we raced a failure." I told her you were between opportunities. "I'm the founder and CEO of a company no one's heard of." She patted my arm. "It's fine, dear. Not everyone can be successful like Victoria. She's marrying into one of the most respected families in the state. That's real achievement." Dad joined us, drink in hand. He'd put on weight since I'd last seen him, his tuxedo straining slightly at the buttons. "There's my youngest. Still playing tech entrepreneur." "I am an entrepreneur, Dad." Right. He chuckled. "When are you going to get serious about your future? You can't spend your whole life pretending to run a company." "I'm not pretending." "Sure, sweetheart." He squeezed my shoulder with the condescension of someone who'd never believed in anything I'd done. "Your mother and I worry about you. Living in that tiny apartment, no husband, no real career. It's not too late to go back to school. Get an MBA. Something respectable." My tiny apartment was a penthouse in Manhattan that I'd purchased outright last year. But I'd learned years ago that correcting them was pointless. They'd built a narrative where I was the struggling failure and Victoria was the golden child, and no amount of reality could penetrate that story. The reception hall was magnificent. Round tables dressed in white linens surrounded a massive dance floor. A live band played jazz standards. The bar served top-shelf everything. Victoria had spared no expense, though I knew from overheard conversations that Marcus's family was footing most of the bill. I found my assigned seat at table 9, far from the head table. My table mates were Victoria's college friends. Women in their early 30s who worked in marketing and finance, wearing designer dresses and discussing their recent vacation homes. "You must be the sister," one of them said as I sat down. Her name card read Jennifer. "That's me. Sophie. Victoria mentioned you." The way she said it made clear exactly what Victoria had mentioned. "What do you do?" "I run a technology company." "Oh, how interesting." Her smile was plastic. "What kind of technology?" "We develop AI-powered content distribution platforms. We work with major streaming services to optimize." "That sounds complicated." She'd already lost interest, turning to her neighbor. "Did you see Victoria's ring? 5 carats. Marcus had it custom designed." The dinner service began. Filet mignon and Chilean sea bass. Speeches from the best man and maid of honor. Victoria and Marcus's first dance. Everything was perfect, orchestrated, expensive. I was picking at my dessert when Victoria approached my table, Marcus in tow. She looked radiant, flushed with champagne and attention. "Everyone, this is my little sister Sophie." Her tone was bright, performative. "Sophie works at a startup. She's very dedicated to her little internet project." The table offered polite smiles. Marcus extended his hand. "Nice to finally meet you. Victoria's told me about your ventures." "Has she?" "The tech space is very competitive," he continued, his handshake firm and brief. "My firm looks at investment opportunities in that sector occasionally. Most startups fail within the first few years. The ones that survive usually get acquired for pennies on the dollar." "Some do better than that," I said. Sure. The unicorns. But those are exceptions." He draped his arm around Victoria's waist. "The realistic path is to build something modest, sell it to a bigger company and move into a stable corporate role. That's the smart play." Victoria beamed up at him. "Marcus knows everything about business. His father's fund has over $2 billion in assets." "Impressive," I said. "What's your company valued at?" Marcus asked with the casual cruelty of someone who assumed he already knew the answer. "We don't usually discuss that publicly." "That means it's not much." He laughed. "Look, no judgment. Everyone has to start somewhere. If you ever want real career advice, I'm happy to introduce you to our HR department. We're always looking for motivated people willing to start at the bottom." "That's generous." "Family helps family," Victoria said, squeezing his arm. "Even when some of us are more successful than others." Mom appeared behind them, champagne glass in hand. "Are we talking about Sophie's little hobby?" "It's not a hobby, Mom. It's a company with 347 employees." 300. Victoria blinked. "You have employees?" "Yes." "Like actual paid employees?" Marcus's skepticism was evident. "Yes." "Doing what exactly?" Dad had joined the growing circle around my table. Other guests were starting to pay attention. "We provide AI-driven content discovery and distribution technology to streaming platforms. Our algorithms analyze viewing patterns to optimize content recommendations and—" "Sounds like a complicated way to say you help people find TV shows," Marcus interrupted. "That's not exactly revolutionary. Netflix already does that." "We work with Netflix. And Hulu. And Amazon Prime. And Disney Plus. We power the recommendation engines for 17 of the top 20 streaming services globally." The group went quiet for a moment. Then Victoria laughed. "Sophie, you don't need to exaggerate. We're family. You can be honest." "I'm not exaggerating." "Sweetie," Mom said gently, "it's okay to be proud of what you've built. But claiming you work with all those companies, it sounds desperate." "I'm not claiming. I'm stating facts." "Facts that no one can verify," Dad added. "Look, we admire your ambition. But tonight is about Victoria and Marcus. Let's not make up stories to compete with their success." My phone buzzed in my clutch. A text from my CFO. "News goes live in 10 minutes. PR team standing by. You seeing this coverage?" I glanced at my watch. 5:50 p.m. "I'm not making up anything," I said quietly. "Of course not," Victoria said with exaggerated sympathy. "You believe in your little project. That's sweet. But Marcus and I are building a real future. His father's already talking about bringing him into the senior partnership. We're looking at houses in Greenwich. That's real success." Jennifer from my table chimed in. Victoria, didn't you mention your sister was struggling financially? Maybe she needs. I'm not struggling. There's no shame in needing help, Mom said. Your father and I have discussed it. We could loan you some money. Help you get back on your feet. You could take some classes, update your resume. I don't need money. Everyone needs money, sweetie. Especially when you're 28 with no real job and no prospects. Marcus checked his phone. Speaking of prospects, the market closed strong today. Tech sector was up. Even the struggling startups got a bump. He smirked at me. Maybe your little company gained a few dollars in imaginary value. Maybe, I said. Victoria's maid of honor rushed over, phone in hand. You guys have to see this. There's breaking news about some tech billionaire. She stopped, staring at her screen. Wait, she looks like. The reception hall had multiple TV screens mounted on the walls, usually showing a slideshow of Victoria and Marcus's photos. But someone at the bar had switched one to a cable news channel. The screen showed the CNBC logo. Breaking news banner. And my face. Not a candid photo. Not a blurry picture. My official press photo, the one we'd spent 3 hours shooting last month with Annie Leibovitz for the Forbes cover. Nextstream Technologies going public today with a stunning valuation of $8.7 billion, the anchor was saying. 28-year-old CEO Sophie Chen becomes the youngest female tech billionaire in history. The room began to quiet, people noticing the screens. That's. Jennifer pointed. That's you. Holds a 47% stake in the company, making her personal net worth approximately $4.1 billion. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the increasingly silent reception hall. Marcus stared at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. That can't be. Revolutionized content distribution across major streaming platforms. Netflix, Amazon, Disney, Hulu. All confirmed as major clients using Nextstream's proprietary AI technology. Mom's face had gone pale. Sophie. The screen cut to footage of the Nasdaq opening bell. Me standing with my executive team, smiling as we rang the bell this morning before I'd rushed to catch a flight for the wedding. Trading opened at $43 per share and immediately jumped to $67, the anchor continued. This is the largest tech IPO of the year and one of the biggest in history. Sophie Chen, who founded the company 6 years ago fresh out of MIT, has been called the most influential figure in streaming technology. Dad's phone buzzed. Then Mom's. Then Marcus's. Then everyone's. The slideshow on the other screens had switched to news coverage. Every major financial outlet was running the story. Bloomberg. Financial Times. Reuters. Wall Street Journal. Forbes released their special edition cover early. Someone at another table said, scrolling their phone. The headline is The Quiet Billionaire. How Sophie Chen Built Streaming's Secret Empire. Victoria turned to me, her face cycling through emotions. Shock, confusion, anger, disbelief. You let us think. I tried to tell you. Multiple times. But you said you worked at a startup. I do. I founded it. Marcus was reading his phone, his confident expression crumbling. This article says. It says you turned down a $6 billion acquisition offer from Google last year. $6.2 billion. It wasn't enough. Not enough. His voice cracked. My father's entire fund is $2 billion and he's worked 40 years. Sophie Chen's company processes over 3 trillion data points daily, the TV anchor continued. Her technology has fundamentally changed how 2 billion people discover and consume content. A new voice came from near the entrance. Miss Chen. A woman in a sharp blazer approached, followed by a camera crew. She held a microphone with a CNN logo. I'm Rachel Kim from CNN Business. We've been trying to reach you all day. Would you be willing to give us a statement about the IPO? Every eye in the reception hall fixed on me. This really isn't the time, I said. This is my sister's wedding. We understand, but this is the biggest business story of the year. You're trending #1 globally on Twitter. The public wants to hear from you. Victoria made a strangled sound. Another reporter appeared, this one from Bloomberg. Then another from the Wall Street Journal. My PR team must have let slip which wedding I was attending. Miss Chin, is it true you started the company with only $50,000? Miss Chin, Forbes is calling you the most important tech founder since Zuckerberg. Miss Chin, what do you say to young women who want to follow in your footsteps? Security guards moved to intercept the reporters, but the damage was done. Everyone in the hall was staring. Phones were out. Pictures were being taken. Mom grabbed my arm. Why didn't you tell us? I did tell you. You didn't believe me. But you live so modestly. You dress so plain. I like being comfortable. Dad's face was red. When I asked about your job, you could have explained. I tried. You called it pretending. You offered to help me get an entry-level position. Victoria's eyes were filling with tears, her perfect makeup starting to run. You made me look like a fool. I didn't do anything, Victoria. I just answered questions honestly. Marcus was still scrolling his phone. There's an article here about your penthouse in Manhattan. Says you paid $24 million. Cash. $22 million. They got the price wrong. Jennifer leaned across the table. You own a $22 million apartment? And properties in San Francisco, London, and Tokyo, someone reading another article announced. Plus a venture capital fund with $500 million in assets. The CNN reporter persisted. Miss Chin, just one question. What drove you to build this company? I stood, smoothing my plain navy dress. I wanted to solve a problem I saw in content distribution. I studied computer science and machine learning at MIT. I identified an inefficiency in how streaming platforms matched content to viewers. I built an algorithm. It worked. I built a company around it. That's the story. But you're a billionaire at 28. The wealth is incidental. The technology matters. The problem we solved matters. The rest is just numbers. Rachel Kim's eyes gleamed. That's a great quote. Can we? No. This is my sister's wedding reception. You need to leave. But Miss Chin. No. Please. Security finally managed to escort the reporters out, but the chaos remained. Everyone was talking, phones out, pulling up articles and news coverage. Victoria and Marcus's perfect reception had transformed into a circus about someone else. Victoria stood frozen, mascara streaking her cheeks. Guests who'd been fawning over her 20 minutes ago were now craning their necks to look at me. I should go, I said quietly. You should go. Victoria's voice was shrill. You just destroyed my wedding and you think you should go? I didn't destroy anything. I came here to support you. The timing of the announcement wasn't something I could control. You could have warned us. You could have told us the truth. I did. Repeatedly. For 6 years. Mom stepped between us. Sophie, Victoria has a point. You let us believe. I let you believe what you wanted to believe. I told you I ran a successful company. You decided that meant I was failing. I told you I was happy with my career. You decided I needed rescuing. I told you the truth, Mom. You just didn't like it. Dad cleared his throat. Well, this is quite a surprise. Is it? I looked at him. Is it really surprising that I built something? That I'm good at what I do? Or is it just surprising that you finally have to acknowledge it? That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 6 years having my family treat me like a charity case while I was building one of the most valuable companies in tech. What's not fair is coming to my sister's wedding and being introduced as the family failure while my face is literally on the cover of Forbes. Marcus's phone rang. He glanced at it, his face going even paler. It's my father. You should answer, I said. He stepped away and I could hear fragments of the conversation. Didn't know. Her sister, yes. I called her startup modest. Oh God. Victoria's maid of honor appeared with tissues, trying to salvage the makeup situation. Guests were still clustered around their phones, the reception's careful choreography completely derailed. The Wall Street Journal article says you're being compared to Steve Jobs, Jennifer said, her earlier dismissiveness replaced with eager attention. It says your technology is as revolutionary as the iPhone. That's hyperbolic. It says Netflix's stock jumped 12% when they announced the depth of their partnership with Nextstream. The market overreacts. Mom touched my arm gently. Sophie, I don't understand. If you're so successful, why do you live so simply? Why don't you dress better? Why don't you talk about it? Because the work matters, not the performance. I don't need designer clothes to write better code. I don't need people to know my net worth to solve technical problems. I built something meaningful. That's enough. But we thought. You thought I was struggling because I didn't perform wealth the way Victoria does. Because I didn't brag. Because I focused on work instead of appearances. I picked up my clutch. I need to go. My team needs me for interviews. Sophie, wait. Dad reached for me. What? He struggled for words. We're proud of you? Are you? Or are you just impressed by the dollar amount? That's not. It is. If the IPO had been $100 million instead of $8 billion, you'd still be calling it a hobby. If I'd sold for $50 million and retired, you'd say I quit. The only thing that's changed is the number is big enough that you can't ignore it anymore. Victoria finally spoke, her voice small. I didn't know. I know. You could have made me understand. I tried, Victoria. For 6 years. You weren't interested in understanding. You were interested in winning. In being the successful sister. In having the better life. I gestured around the elaborate reception. You got your perfect wedding. You got your rich husband. You got everything you wanted. The only thing that's changed is you found out I wasn't the failure you needed me to be to make your success feel complete. That's not true. Isn't it? She didn't answer. Marcus returned, his face ashen. My father wants to. He'd like to discuss potential investment opportunities with Nextstream. He said our firm could. We're not seeking investment. We just went public. Right. Of course. I just meant, he'd like to meet you. Professionally. I'm sure he would. Mom dabbed at her eyes. Sophie, please don't leave angry. I'm not angry, Mom. I'm tired. I'm tired of being underestimated by the people who are supposed to know me best. I'm tired of being treated like a project that needs fixing. I adjusted my clutch. But mostly I'm just tired because I've been up since 4 a.m. for the IPO, flew 6 hours to be here, and still have a board meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. You flew here directly from the stock exchange? Dad asked. Of course. Victoria invited me to her wedding. I wasn't going to miss it. Even though you what? Treated me like a failure? Is that? Even though. Because that's what family does. We show up. Even when it's hard. Even when we're not appreciated. Even when we could be doing literally anything else. I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Victoria crying, Mom trying to comfort her, Marcus on another frantic phone call with his father. At the door, I paused and looked back. The reception hall that had been so perfectly arranged was now chaos. Guests huddled in groups, scrolling phones, watching the news coverage that was still playing on every screen. Victoria, the bride, stood in the center of it all, her perfect day unraveled. Part of me felt guilty. A small part. But the larger part, the part that had spent 6 years being dismissed, doubted, and patronized, felt something else entirely. Vindication. My phone buzzed. My assistant. Tesla's outside. CNN wants a live interview in 20 minutes. Forbes wants to move up your cover story. And your mention on Twitter just hit 2 million. I stepped out into the cool evening air. A crowd had gathered outside the hotel. Reporters, photographers, people who'd seen the news and wanted a glimpse of the suddenly famous billionaire. Miss Chin. One photo. Miss Chin. How does it feel? Miss Chin. What's next for Nextstream? A black Tesla was waiting at the curb, my driver holding the door open. I slid into the back seat and the chaos outside muted to a dull roar. My phone rang. Victoria. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom. Then Dad. Then Marcus. All to voicemail. Finally, a text from Victoria. I'm sorry. Please. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed, not tonight. Tonight is your wedding. Enjoy it. She didn't respond. The car pulled away from the hotel. Through the tinted windows, I could see the reporters still clustered at the entrance. Inside, my family was presumably trying to salvage the reception. Tomorrow, Victoria's wedding would be remembered not for her designer dress or the 5-carat ring or the perfect venue, but as the wedding where her failure sister was revealed as a billionaire. That wasn't what I'd wanted. But it was what they'd earned. My phone rang again. Rachel Kim from CNN. This time I answered. Miss Chin? Thank you for taking my call. I know tonight was complicated. But the world wants to hear your story. The real story. Not the assumptions. Not the speculation. Your story. What do you want to know? Everything. Let's start at the beginning. 6 years ago, fresh out of MIT, what made you think you could change the world? I smiled, watching the Manhattan skyline come into view through the window. I didn't think I could change the world, I said. I just thought I could solve one problem better than anyone else. Everything after that was just math. The interview lasted 90 minutes. By the time it aired the next morning, my story was everywhere. Not just the business networks but mainstream news, morning shows, social media. The narrative had crystallized. The underestimated sister who'd quietly built an empire while her family dismissed her dreams. My phone filled with messages. Interview requests. Partnership proposals. Speaking invitations. And, eventually, more messages from family. Victoria, everyone's talking about you, not my wedding. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. Mom, please call. We need to talk about this properly. I didn't respond. Dad, your mother is very upset. This isn't how family treats each other. To that one I responded, you're absolutely right. He didn't seem to catch the irony. 3 days later, Forbes hit newsstands with my face on the cover. The headline, The Invisible Billionaire, How Sophie Chen Built Tech's Secret Empire While Her Family Thought She Was Broke. The article was fair, thorough, and devastating. It included the quote from Marcus about startups failing, Victoria's comment about my little internet hobby, and my parents' offer to loan me money while I was literally preparing for a multi-billion-dollar IPO. Mom called 17 times that day. I answered on the 18th. Sophie, please. You're making us look like monsters. I'm not making you look like anything, Mom. I just told the truth. But the way they wrote it is accurate. People are saying terrible things. Your father's colleagues are asking questions. Victoria's friends are posting on social media. Marcus's father is. He's very upset. I imagine he is. This isn't fair to your sister. It was her wedding. Her special day. It was. And she spent it introducing me as the family failure while I was on the Forbes billionaire list. How is that fair, Mom? Silence. We didn't know, she finally said. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. What do you want from us, Sophie? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Will that fix this? I don't want an apology, Mom. I want you to understand why this happened. I want you to see that for 6 years, you chose to believe I was failing rather than accept I might be succeeding. I want you to ask yourself why you needed me to be the struggling daughter so badly that you ignored every piece of evidence to the contrary. That's not, we were just worried. No, Mom. You were comfortable. It was easier to have one successful daughter and one that needed saving. It made Victoria's choices look better and gave you a project to fix. But I never needed fixing. I just needed my family to believe in me. He started crying. I do believe in you. Now you do. Now that everyone else does. Now that it's on TV and in Forbes and impossible to deny. But when it was just me telling you about my company, showing you my work, trying to share my success, you didn't believe me then. And that's the difference, Mom. That's the part that hurts. I hung up. The story took on a life of its own. Think pieces about family dynamics and success. Articles about women in tech and the double standards they face. Discussions about how we define achievement and who we choose to believe. Victoria deleted her social media accounts. Marcus's father's firm issued a statement about supporting emerging tech leaders that everyone recognized as damage control. My parents stopped calling. But the world kept spinning. Nextstream's stock stabilized at a valuation that made us one of the top 100 companies in the world. I hired 200 more employees. We signed 3 new major platform deals. The technology continued improving, the problems continued getting solved, and the work that had always mattered most, continued. 6 months later, Victoria called. Not texted. Told. I answered. Hi, she said. Hi. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Shri sorry. Not sorry that I got caught or sorry that it became public. Sorry that I treated you that way. I waited. I was jealous, she continued. I think I always was. You were smarter, more driven, more passionate about your work. I built my life around looking successful. Around marrying the right person and living in the right neighborhood and having the right friends. And you just did something meaningful. Something real. And I hated that. I hated that you didn't need the performance. Thank you for saying that. I don't expect you to forgive me. or to come to family events, or to have a relationship with me. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry. I don't hate you, Victoria. You should. Maybe. But I don't. It's sad. Sad that we could have been close. Sad that you felt like my success was a threat instead of something to celebrate. Sad that it took public humiliation for you to see me clearly. Me too. We talked for an hour. It didn't fix everything. But it was a start. Mom and Dad took longer. A year later they showed up at my office in Manhattan. Unannounced. Unexpected. We'd like to see what you built, Dad said simply. I gave them the tour. Showed them the technology, introduced them to my team, explained the problems we were solving. They asked questions. Real questions. Interested questions. At the end, Mom hugged me. I'm proud of you. I should have said that 6 years ago. I should have said it every day. I'm proud of you, Sophie. It didn't erase the years of dismissal. But it was something. Marcus reached out about investment opportunities twice more before finally accepting that Nextstream wasn't interested. His father's firm eventually did invest in one of our competitors, which we acquired 18 months later for $900 million. The wedding photos from Victoria's reception occasionally still surface on social media, usually with captions like, "The moment a family realized they'd been wrong for 6 years," or "When the failure sister turns out to be a billionaire." Victoria handles it with more grace than I expected. As for me, I'm still in my Manhattan penthouse, still wearing simple clothes, still solving problems, still building. The only difference is now when I tell people I run a tech company, they believe me. And when my family introduces me, they lead with, "This is Sophie. She's doing some incredible things." Not meet the family failure. Not still playing entrepreneur. Just the truth. Finally,